So I finally made it to Epic Universe. It's kind of funny to be saying finally, considering the park doesn't even open for another month. But there's been team member previews, which I can't go to, then family and friends previews, which I don't know anyone well enough to go, and then there's been media previews, which I'm not popular enough for, so I had to wait all the way until pass holder previews. Man, I feel like I'm the last person in Orlando to visit this park. So I know I'm about 2 weeks late compared to all the other YouTubers in talking about Epic, and I didn't want to spoil anything for myself, so I've avoided all other YouTubers talking about going, unlike most of you watching right now. But let me just tell the story and give my honest thoughts and reviews about Epic Universe. So first I'll say that Epic is in kind of a weird spot. It's not directly off the freeway like most other parks, and most of the roads around it are either brand new or some of them aren't even finished yet. And so it's kind of difficult to find your way over there. I mean, I'm only a couple miles away, but I still felt like I was taking all sorts of windy back roads just to get there. But once I got there, I was surprised to find that my annual pass does actually get me free Prime parking. My annual pass also gets me discounts inside the park. And from what I've heard, once the park opens, this pass will also get me free express after 4 p.m. But you know what this pass doesn't do? Get me into the park. But since I only had one day here, I was reminded of just how different of an experience going to a theme park without an annual pass is, because I was there from the start of early park admission all the way till after park close, which was a long day, and I'm still pretty exhausted. So when early park admission starts, the only thing open is Super Nintendo World, and then also the main central hub, Celestial Park. Well, Stardust Racers was down in the morning, so everyone just went over to Super Nintendo World. So I start the day just getting on Single Rider of Donkey Kong, the Minecart Madness. But honestly, I would kind of say that Minecart Madness feels more like a dark ride than a roller coaster. I mean, it is technically a roller coaster, but it's not very fast, and it's just extremely themed all the way through. I mean, this ride just looks amazing from start to finish. And I learned throughout the day that just about every ride in this park is full of animatronics and on-ride audio and just great theming. So anyway, the reason I started with Minecart Madness is because I've been told that the line gets really horrible, and I definitely understood that throughout the day because the capacity on this thing is not very good. They can only send 4 people at a time, and those 4 people are pretty spaced out, so the line moves really slow. In fact, all of Super Nintendo World is kind of that way. So the other ride over there is this Mario Kart ride, and I gotta say that, like, the queue of this ride is amazing, and a lot of the practical effects throughout this ride are really cool too. But, like, the whole augmented reality, like, goggles thing, I was not a big fan of, to be honest. Like, you got these really cool sets and animatronics going on, and then you've got, like, these, like, tiny little holograms that are just, like, kind of in your vision, but they don't really blend very well with the rest of the ride. And then, like, you're supposed to look at the other racers while pushing a button to shoot at them. And so it's like this really weird and kind of clunky interactive system. As far as, like, shooting dark rides go, this is probably my least favorite type that I've seen. I think that I'd probably enjoy this ride more if I just took the goggles off and just experienced it raw, which I'll probably try next time I do it. But overall, it still feels like a really high quality ride. I was still very impressed with, like, how well it was put together. And then the third ride over in Nintendo World is just that little Yoshi people mover type ride. I mean, it's kind of cute. It's just a relaxing little thing to cruise around, and you get some good views up there. But again, all 3 Super Nintendo rides have really low capacity, so you're probably going to be stuck in pretty awful lines. However, I do think that the Nintendo Land was the land that surprised me the most. It was not the land I was most excited for, but after going to all of the lands, I think that it actually impressed me the most. It just feels like there's so much to see, and there's just so much going on, and they've got all the music playing, and I would say it was probably the most immersive land in the whole park. But again, it feels like it's kind of a cramped little area, and so when you've got tons of people there, it can feel a bit crowded. So anyways, right outside Nintendo Land, you've got Celestial Park, which is the whole central hub, which is a very unique part of this park. You've got these huge, wide open pathways, and I mean, it takes a long time to walk from one end to the other. But my problem with it is that it kind of feels a bit empty. Because it's so big, there's no way that they can fill the whole thing with stuff to see and do. A lot of it is just walking paths, which is fine, except that there's also just almost no shade for the whole area. So you feel like you're just a sitting duck out on these huge wide open pathways with the sun just beating right down on you. I think this is an issue that will improve over the years though, because there are clearly a lot of, like, freshly planted trees, and it's going to take a little while for them to grow and, you know, create some actual shade. But as of right now, it feels very open. And let's just say that I never really feel the need to wear hats or glasses or sunscreen when I'm in the parks, because, you know, usually you're going in and out of shade, you're going inside a lot, and I never really have trouble with, like, sunburns in theme parks. But in this case, I did actually have to bite the bullet and get myself a hat, just because I was so worried about burning my head and face. But the 2 rides in Celestial Park are the Carousel and Stardust Racers. Now, the Carousel it is actually a pretty unique carousel. I mean, it's got a lot more moving parts and you do go a little bit higher. But I would say that the vibes of this ride are way better at night. But then the other ride right here is Stardust Racers. Now, it's not too surprising, but this might actually be my new favorite roller coaster. Now, luckily, during these preview days, the park was actually not super crowded, so I was actually able to ride this 6 times throughout the day. I did 3 times on each side, and I'm not going to tell you which side is my favorite because the comparison is so close that it's really not worth getting hung up over, like, waiting in a longer line for one side. I do have one side I like a little bit more, but they're basically the same. But this ride feels very similar to Velocicoaster in that it's just a lot of launches and air times, but in this case you have another coaster right next to you, and this creates a much more different experience than you would expect. So normally on a roller coaster, you know, you're facing forward, you're just watching the track ahead of you. But on this racing coaster, you are often looking over to the side. So like you're going down the track, but then there's another car right next to you, and so you're looking at them, and then you start like whipping around each other, and so you're just like watching them as they go around you, and then you start going around them, and then you come so close to each other, and it's just really awesome to just be, you know, racing the whole way. You know, for so long it seems like people only give roller coasters credit just for the feelings you get, you know, all of the elements and the airtime and all that stuff. But I feel like theming and visuals are something that a lot of coasters really forget about. Like, yeah, it's great to have a lot of cool feelings while you're on the ride, but it's also cool to have like really good sights. And then the rides also have music playing too, so you get the sounds too. So it's more than just a ride, it's more of like an experience. And so when you've got the visuals of racing another train and the sounds of the music playing and all of the airtime, it adds so much to a coaster that like a basic parking lot coaster just can't really compare to. But anyway, I do think that Stardust Racers might be the best ride in the park. At nighttime, it definitely is. During the daytime, it has some competition. So let's talk about that competition, starting with Dark Universe. Now, Dark Universe was the land that I was most excited for. However, I feel like this land is kind of small, and I would almost even go so far as to say it feels almost like unfinished. Now, like the main street where you walk in, it's really nice. You've got all these like shops and everything looks creepy, and then you've got the big castle in the background, and all of that has really good vibes. But then you take this like back pathway, and it's mostly just like dead looking grass, which I mean, I guess they're going for this like isolated countryside type theme. But then you go over there and it just feels like there's not much there. There's not much theming. You've got the werewolf coaster back there, which was not my favorite. There's not a whole lot of theming. It's probably the least exciting roller coaster in the whole park. So yeah, the werewolf coaster, it's got spinning and it's fine. It's an okay little family coaster, but it's kind of just a small filler ride, I guess. But the main attraction in Dark Universe is definitely Monsters Unchained, or should I call Monsters Unhinged, because this ride is one big cluster in a good way though. So you walk through this big haunted castle of a queue, which, I mean, the queue is everything you could hope for. I mean, there's tons of, like, these crazy scenes. You feel like you're walking into a giant haunted house. It almost has, like, Halloween Horror Nights vibes in some places. But then you get to the loading station for the ride. And I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons to Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, Oberon Islands of Adventure, because it's a very similar ride style. However, there are a lot of things that make this one different. So again, you have 4 seats that are just, like, on an arm, and that arm travels around a track. And it's sort of just pointing you at what it wants you to look at. But this time, it doesn't put you in front of a screen like Forbidden Journey does, so it's not trying to do like a simulator thing. But like I was saying with calling this Monsters Unhinged, this ride is just absolute chaos. I mean, it'll stick a monster in your face, and the monster will try and jump out at you, and then it'll whip you around, and then there's another monster coming at you, and then it'll like whip you around again, and there's 2 monsters fighting around you, and it's just non-stop action of like everything like killing each other and just stuff popping out at you. It's like, it's so fast-paced, there's so much action and horror, and yeah, it goes on for a long time, too. I think I heard somewhere that it's like 50% longer than Forbidden Journey. Now, the funny thing about the day that I went, I don't know if this is just a preview thing, but it seemed like in the mornings, as everything opened, all the lines got super long, and Monsters Unchained started at like 90 minutes right when they opened. However, later in the afternoon, there was nobody on it at all. Like, at one point, I just walked right in. I was the only person on the ride. I saw, like, empty seats everywhere. So I actually did get on it 3 or 4 times throughout the day. They do have a single rider line, which can be faster, but I would recommend you do the standby queue at least once, because the single rider skips, like, you know, half the experience of, like, walking through the castle. But yeah, I was amazed at just how easy it was to get on this throughout the day. But I'd also noticed that throughout the day, more and more animatronics would, like, stop working. And so that's probably something that needs to be figured out a little bit, before the official launch. But as for Dark Universe as a whole, I'd say the land is pretty cool, but mostly only at night, which is kind of obvious. This park actually got way more crowded after the sun went down, because, I mean, obviously it's a horror movie. It's called Dark Universe. It's going to look better in the dark. But yeah, during the day, this park doesn't really give the vibe I feel like it's supposed to. So if you're going to create a schedule of like doing one land at a time and just hitting everything once, I would save Dark Universe for the end of the day. But now let's move over to the new Wizarding World, which I might get a little bit of hate for saying this, but this might be my least favorite of the 3 Wizarding Worlds. Now just think about this. When you walk into Epic Universe, you go into all these other worlds. You go into Nintendo Land or Isle of Berk or Dark Universe, and everything is like this fantastical, like, fantasy land. And then you walk into just an average street in France. That's kind of how I felt, where I'm just like, alright, I mean, I guess it is a theme, but it feels like too much of a real world kind of theme. This feels more like an Epcot pavilion than an Epic Land. And then to make it worse, when you go in there, there's not a whole lot you can even do, because the Ministry ride is on virtual queue only. So if you don't have a virtual queue, you can't go in there. And then the other thing to do there is a show, which happens every hour. So if you walk in there and the show isn't for another 45 minutes and you don't have a virtual queue, you're just like, well, I guess I'll just walk around and look at stuff. But even that I was finding a bit frustrating, because it was kind of hard to tell what anything was, especially on these streets where, like, some doors take you into a shop and some doors are just decorative. And so you're walking around like, where can I even go? Like, most things aren't labeled. Most places you can't see into the windows. Like, I want to explore things, but I just feel kind of lost and like I'm not really finding anything. And one issue that I kept running into all over the park was I was just like, all right, I'm just hungry, or I want some ice cream. Like, can I just walk into some place and just order something to eat or just get a snack? And so I would see what looked like a food place, and so I'd be like, all right, I'll go check it out. And I'd walk in there and it was just a bar. They were just selling alcohol. So I'm like, all right, I'll find somewhere else. So I'd walk in there, and again, it was just a bar. I'm like, why are there so many bars around here? And another thing that was really frustrating was that a lot of the restaurants, you just go in, you sit down, you scan the table, and then you order off the app. However, the app doesn't always work so well. So at one point in the day, I was like, all right, I'm hungry, I need to eat something. So I went and sat down at one of the restaurants. I open up the app to order, and it's not loading. I'm waiting for like 5 minutes, and it's still not loading. So I go and ask, like, hey, is there any other way I can order? And they're like, no, just try getting on the park Wi-Fi. And I'm like, okay. So I do, and that actually does work, so I am able to order, but the Wi-Fi doesn't, like, stay working all day, so, like, I lost the connection. So later in the day, when I tried ordering food again, I run into the same issue where the app's not loading. I try to get onto Wi-Fi, but now that's not working. So I'm just like, well, guess I'm screwed. I can't order food anywhere because they will only let you do it through the app in most places. And if the app isn't working, then good luck. And one issue that I was actually having throughout the day was that my phone was dying. I mean, part of it was because I was taking a bunch of pictures and videos, but Epic kind of makes you use your phone a little bit too much, I think. Because they give you the virtual queue thing, which you've really got to be paying attention to. You got to keep checking the time to make sure you don't miss the queue. And then you've always got to use it to order food anywhere you go, too. But lucky for me, I was able to get a virtual queue for the Ministry of Magic. And I will say, I did not know what to expect with this ride, and it blew me away. Even with all of my complaints about the new Harry Potter land, like, this Ministry ride is still the best Harry Potter ride they've ever made, I think. So I won't spoil it too much, but I'll just sort of give a basic overview of, like, how the ride works. So a lot of people were thinking that it's like some kind of Tower of Terror kind of ride, just because the ride vehicles look similar. But that's really where the similarities end. In fact, I would actually say that this is a very similar ride style to, like, Spider-Man or Transformers, but at a much grander scale. So, like, on Spider-Man, you know, you're taken in this little car, and it takes you up to a screen, and then something on the screen is, like, you know, attacking you, and it's, like, shaking your vehicle around, and then you see some practical effects, and it moves you to another screen. So that kind of thing happens a lot on this Ministry ride, but it's like a 5-story building, and you're just in these huge rooms, and you're taken to these gigantic screens, and then, you know, big stuff happens, and then it moves you to some more animatronic stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like what to expect. And I know a lot of people are kind of sick of seeing screen-based simulator rides, and I've definitely felt that way too. However, all of the screens in this new park are insanely high quality. Like, you can tell that the technology has improved quite a lot, because in some cases, like, it looks way more real. It doesn't feel like you're looking at a screen a lot of the time. So, I mean, I feel super lucky that I was even able to ride Ministry of Magic, because from what I've heard, it only started running, like, in the last couple weeks, I think. It's taken a long time for them to get it working, and apparently it breaks down a lot. And then you also have to get through the virtual queue. So the fact that I made it past all these barriers and was able to ride it, and everything worked while I rode it too. I mean, well, it did break down a little bit, but not in the middle, only at the start. Anyway, the other thing in the Wizarding World is there's a show there. which I didn't actually get to see. And the stupid reason for that, so I was doing my best to time things throughout the day, and I was like, okay, my virtual queue is at 6:35, so I will go to the 6 p.m. showing of this show. So at like 5:30, I'm walking all over the park looking for some ice cream and being really frustrated. So I finally find some. I'm eating my ice cream right outside the show building. I'm like, all right, it starts in 10 minutes. As soon as I finish this, I'll go to the bathroom and I'll come back and go in. So I come out of the bathroom and then I walk up and they're like, we're at capacity. So I'm like, well, great. I guess I'm not watching this today. I think one of the problems with this Wizarding World is that it's not really a Harry Potter world. I think it's based more on the Fantastic Beasts films, which I could never get into, and I'm pretty sure most people are the same way. The Harry Potter films are far more popular, but they're just like, well, we kind of ran out of locations to use for Harry Potter, but we still want to keep the IP going, so we're just going to add something that's kind of similar. So I mean, Harry Potter himself doesn't even have that big of a presence in this land, other than the whole Ministry of Magic ride, and maybe the show. I don't know, I didn't see it. So I think it's safe to say that the top 3 rides for me and most people are Stardust Racers, Ministry of Magic, and Monsters Unchained. I would say that Monsters Unchained and Ministry are both the same sort of like extreme high quality, so I could see people putting one over the other just based on their preferences. And then Stardust Racers is another very high quality ride, but in a much different way, so I really wouldn't blame anyone for like putting any of those 3 above each other. But now let's move on to the final land, which is How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk. Now this land is kind of cute. I do like that there is this kind of theming in the park. It is kind of crazy just how much variety of theming there is around this park. But again, we've got 3 rides in this land, and they're okay. They actually have a flat ride here, which is kind of unusual for Universal. And it's not a great flat ride. It just kind of swings you around, and you can kind of control like how much you twist. But I wasn't able to get it to like fully spin around no matter how hard I tried. And I didn't see anyone else manage to do it either. So maybe it takes some practice, but it's probably not a ride that I'm going to care much about. And then there's also a water ride over there, which is actually the one thing I didn't do, just because, like, I don't know, I didn't really want to risk getting soaked. I mean, there were times of the day where I was really hot and felt like I could use a splash of water on me, but with water rides, you never know if you're just going to get a refreshing splash, or if you're going to have wet socks for the rest of the day. And that was just a risk I was not willing to make. But then the final ride here is the roller coaster. I think it's called a Hiccups Wing Gliders or something. And I actually managed to get the very first train of the day in the very front row. So at least I've got something to brag about here. And this coaster is actually pretty good. I mean, I had pretty high hopes for it, and it met all my expectations. It's very well themed. It takes you all over the land. I would say that it's almost on the level of Hagrid's as far as quality and just theming, and almost even intensity too. I mean, Hagrid's is definitely a higher production thing, so it's still going to be better, but it's the same kind of style, how you're just kind of like, you're getting launches, there's a couple like parts where you get stopped and then you launch again, but overall those are all of the lands. So I do have some complaints about the park as a whole. Some of them are just because it's in technical rehearsal still and that it's not fully working yet, so I can understand. I think that some things will get better. There were a couple like little food stands off on the side of the pathways that just like didn't put any signs up yet. Like I was in the Donkey Kong land and I see this place that looks like it sells like smoothies or ice cream or something, but there's just like no signs, no menus, no anything. And I'm like, is this place even open? Like, there's people behind the counter, but I have no idea what they're serving. So I'm sure I would have just, like, had to open up the app to order something again. But my battery was draining really fast throughout the day, so I was, like, trying to refrain from using my phone unless I really had to, which is also why I was getting really frustrated that they would only allow you to order food in most places through your phone. Another problem I noticed was that a lot of the ride operations were pretty slow. You could tell that a lot of the employees don't really know what they're doing yet, so that's definitely just going to improve over time with practice. And also a lot of the rides are not super reliable yet. Of course, things are breaking down all the time. One thing I forgot to mention about Isle of Berk was that they have their whole dragon show, and I tried watching it. I sat in the theater, I waited for a while, and then they said, all right, the show's going to be delayed, but just hold on. And then 5 minutes later, they say it again. And then 5 minutes later, they're like, all right, never mind, the show's canceled, get out of here. But they were giving away these things on my way out, which is kind of like that Ruby Pass that I got from being evacuated off the Velocicoaster. This one just one single attraction pass to anywhere at Epic. It's basically them saying like, all right, because you missed out on the ride you wanted to do, we're going to give you a fast pass to do another thing. Unfortunately, it's no good at the Ministry of Magic or Minecart Madness, which is kind of funny because like, I can understand the Ministry of Magic because that's virtual queue only, and they can't just be stuffing everyone else in there. But the Minecart Madness one is funny because it's just like, yeah, we know the capacity is horrible on that thing, so no line cutting there. So yeah, I actually missed out on both shows while I was there, but I'll be back. I'm sure I'll see them next time I go. But to be honest, I've never really liked the type of shows where you have to keep checking the time, where you're like, oh, I want to see that show that I'm walking past, but then you're like, the next one's not for 45 minutes. I don't want to wait around here. I'm going to go somewhere else. Maybe I'll come back. And then later you check the time. You're like, oh, it starts right now, but I'm not anywhere near it. So I don't know. Maybe I just need to be a little bit more patient and wait around sometimes. Now, there are some things that I definitely hope improve over time. Like I was saying, there's a severe lack of shade for a lot of the park. So, maybe the trees will grow a little bigger. I would say that they should put some like canopies, but that might break any sight lines around or whatever. Now, something I also noticed is that the gift shops don't have the most variety of stuff. So like when you're over at Universal Studios or Islands of Adventure, they've got a wide variety of stuff in all the merch shops. I mean, sure, they do have stuff for like Harry Potter and Jurassic Park and all the stuff that they have rides for, but they also just have like a lot of other IP-based or just random fun stuff you can buy. Like there's a whole bunch of like Scooby-Doo stuff or Hello Kitty stuff, stuff that's not technically in the parks, but they still kind of own the rights for. So they're like, all right, we'll just sell a bunch of different stuff. But when you're in Epic, there's basically just Nintendo stuff, Monster stuff, How to Train Your Dragon stuff, and Wizarding World stuff, as well as just a few generic Epic Universe things. But that's about it. So you're not going to find a lot of variety outside of those 4 IPs. And I was also a little bit surprised to find that half the stuff in the shops inside Epic Universe is stuff that you can find in the Epic Preview Center over at City Walk. So I was kind of like, man, is there anything I can get here that's like exclusive to here? I mean, I did get this shirt, which probably started in the Japan Super Nintendo world. But yeah, like I would go into each land, and each land would have 2 or 3 gift shops, but they would kind of all have like the same stuff in them. So I was like, well, I feel like you need to diversify a little bit here. But I mean, that's kind of an issue that they could easily solve over time. And hopefully the park branches out. I know that there's a few expansion plots that they are going to be adding to over the next decade or so. So I'm really excited to see where this park goes. I'm not going to say that it feels like an incomplete park. There's definitely a lot to do, but it still feels like there is room to grow. I feel like we could still do with a few more things to do in the park. I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, Epic is not a one-day park. You need to have at least 2 days to experience everything. And I mean, depending on the crowds, I guess that could be true. But at least for my one preview day, I could have done everything in the park 2 or 3 times. In fact, I did most things 2 or 3 times. The crowd levels were really strange because in the morning, I thought it was going to be packed because basically all the rides in the park, right at like 11:30, right after they open, every ride was at like a 60 to 90 minute wait, especially the Nintendo Land stuff. But then the afternoon showed up, and then all of the wait times just cratered. But then as the sun starts to go down, a lot of the crowds really come back, because this park looks amazing at night. Like, if they don't extend their park hours till at least 10 or 11 p.m. for the entire summer, I'm going to be pretty disappointed, because they've definitely designed this park to be like a nighttime park. Like, all of the lands have so much nice lighting, the park just glows. Like Stardust Racers at night, the trains light up like they're comets flying through space. They actually do a pretty cool nighttime fountain show over by the Helios Hotel, which, I'm just going to call it the mini Bellagio because, let's be honest, that's exactly what this thing is. But I'm pretty sure they're going to be adding a fireworks show as well. I don't have much information on that. I have not heard much. But if Epic is open till midnight every night this summer, and they do a fireworks show every night at 10 p.m., like, I think that will be perfect. We definitely need some nighttime hours in this park. But overall, I would say that this is a very high-quality park. It's really hard for me to compare it to other parks in the area because it's a very different experience going to one park for an entire day for the very first time compared to a bunch of other parks that I've been to 100 times that I just spend a couple hours hanging out at every day. This was the first time in a long time that I've been able to just go and explore and try new things. And it's pretty wild when you think about it because, like, think about how big of a deal it is when Universal or Disney opens one new ride, like whether it's Velocicoaster or Cosmic Rewind, and then everyone is flooding this brand new ride. Well, Universal just dropped 11 new rides all at the same time. And so people are like frantically running around like, I don't know what to look at first. It's kind of crazy just having like so much new high quality stuff all at the same time. And it is a very modern feeling park. This park doesn't feel like any other park I've been to. So yeah, some things I hope they improve is give more options to not have to use your phone so much throughout the day. I hope they drop virtual queue. I never like those things. I feel like they're going a little bit too modern with some things. Because yeah, my phone was just burning through battery the whole day. and my phone actually died towards the end of the night, and so I couldn't really take very many nighttime pictures or videos because I just didn't have a camera anymore. And then when I left the park, it was actually hard for me to get home because I couldn't open the map, and so it's dark. I'm in a place I've never really been before, and I keep like taking the wrong turns down into like hotel avenues, and so I got a little lost on my way home. But overall, it was a really fun day. I definitely want to go back. This is a really great park. For me to say that this is my new favorite park doesn't really mean anything because it's just so different. It's such a different experience. I'll need way more time with it. And one day we'll get annual passes so I can take it a lot more casually, so I can just show up in the evenings and ride Stardust Racers over and over again. There are some people who have speculated if Epic will get a higher attendance in its first year than Magic Kingdom will in that same period. As in, like, will Epic be the most visited theme park in the first year? And the answer to that is absolutely not. There's a zero chance of that happening for a few reasons. For one, there's a lot of times where I've mentioned to people back home, like, oh man, have you heard of Epic Universe? And they're like, what's that? I don't think it's as popular as a lot of people within the niche think it is. But also, what's going to be holding back its attendance numbers is that it doesn't have annual passes. So basically what Universal is doing is they are saying, we're going to sell day tickets for the time being so that everyone who buys a ticket can really experience it so the parks won't be too full. Because if you sell a full day's worth of tickets and then you also have pass holders coming in on top of that, then it makes it double crowded. And so they're probably going to wait till day tickets start to die down and they're not selling as many anymore. And then they'll open the floodgates so that pass holders can come in. But I think that pass holders really inflate attendance numbers because they aren't just single-time visitors. You know, they could come 30 or 100 times like somebody like me. But anyway, there is my review of Epic Universe. I had a great time. Hopefully I didn't repeat too much that the other YouTubers are saying. I saw a whole bunch of other YouTubers while I was there, so clearly everybody's trying to get their content out for this. And yeah, hopefully I gave you some insight that nobody else did.